both sides. We're getting that one.
I'm interested in the power of nonsense in language. So I'm always looking for moments where the language can surprise the audience member and sort of put them into another context, put them into another way of hearing and experiencing the play.
Honey, can you write me a song?
Meat, busk, pry you from your shell. Cracking shells with crackers, designed specially for shell cracking. We have a good time here. It's the only pleasure.
I really love to make things by hand, and I really value that in the things that I consume. In this show, pretty much everything has been made by someone in the show, either for this iteration or when we did it previously 5 years ago, we saved a lot of that stuff. I'm trained as a playwright. I went to Brooklyn College, to Mac Wellman's program there. My creative process is different for every show, but I think one thing that unifies it is that I seldom know exactly where I'm gonna go when I begin a project. I usually start with an image or like a snatch of words that are sort of lingering with me and just follow the impulse. In this show, I play many roles. I wrote the show and directed it. I designed the costumes and I helped out with the set design. And I'm actually producing the show as well as stage managing this show. So it's a lot for one person to do. I keep calling back the same people because I think we share a sensibility and we've developed a particular way of talking to each other. I call back people whose work I really admire, performers I'm really excited by, and musicians who I think are amazing. And so there's a mutual respect that I think makes us want to keep working together. I think there are certain parts that have become developed and illuminated by the performers that are taking them on right now.
That's the finale there. Instead of just playing it out like we did. Come out and it's all.
Craig Flanagan, who's the composer and director and my partner, has brought in to his bands a lot of the musicians that we've been playing with in the last few years.
When I write, I'm often writing the worst things about me, the worst thoughts I have, the feelings I'm most ashamed of, and putting them on the page in the mouths of characters in the hope that that will be kind of healing for me or for other people, or also kind of like galvanizing. We can do better than this. I like theater that is very theatrical or uses a kind of stage language that's more dynamic than actor equals character. I like expressionistic kind of things. I think creative control is a myth. Control is so fragmented always. Theater is such a collaborative art form. Nobody owns an event. A script is an invitation to collaborators to make something. And I work very, very closely with director Morgan Green and also actress Madeline Wise, and we're in a theater company together called New Saloon. And we work very, very, very closely, even if we're starting with a text that I wrote.
What you're about to see is Sister Sylvester, Catherine Hamilton, and collaborators abroad, followed by New Saloon with Milo Cramer. Thank you so much for coming and enjoy the show.
We have self-produced almost all of our own work, and we are just now arriving at a place where we are doing co-productions with people, and more institutional theaters are starting to recognize and like us and give us resources. I think that not waiting for somebody to give you something, is crucial. Doing whatever you want to do is crucial. But it's so tricky because you need to find space, you need to find money to pay everyone, you need to find money for the sets and props and things. It's very, very hard to be a young artist. It's no wonder so many people are afraid to do it.
I sort of entered into theater a little by accident. I went to the news school and I studied the media studies program there. You can choose a focus, and I chose audio. And then I ran into Pavel Lishka, who does Nature Theater of Oklahoma, at a party. We started talking about sound design. And I thought I was going to do sound editing for video, but I tried doing the sound design and I loved it in theater, so I was doing that for a little while, and then I was in Nature Theater of Oklahoma, that company for a while, doing sound and music, and I sort of morphed into becoming a performer, and it felt like a very natural transition to me. I have been baking all my life, and we all had a feeling that this was not going to last forever. I started thinking about what was next for me, and so I decided to go to pastry school. I started, working expressly just in pastry, but then as I did that, I started to miss performing a lot. So then I just decided, why not fuse the two together? And this could be here. Andrew Ondrzak, who's a good friend of mine and a colleague, I was talking with him and I was saying how I wanted to do a cooking show, sort of not as a joke, but like sort of as a lark. And so I think he sort of talked me into doing it. So I did a 10-minute version of that, of the recipe, and so then, it just kind of grew from there. We're gonna just mix this up. It's just like any other cooking show that you see. I use sort of the same format, but instead I'm gonna talk about my slightly subversive life.
Oh, hi! Welcome to the Collapsible Hole, and welcome to my cooking show. The recipe. Thank you so much for coming.
I usually start with like a little bit of a script at the beginning, but then the rest of the show I just sort of outline points that I want to hit. And of course, Matt Corahayas, my collaborator now and director, is essential in helping me build on that.
Yes.
Hey, Eckert, do you know where the gaff tape is?
Kristin comes up really with the recipe and the dessert she wants to serve itself, and then we brainstorm on topics around that, like this one related to deaths and forms of death and celebration of death, and so we both do a lot of reading about that, and it's improvisational. It's never fully scripted, but we have big topics that we are sure she wants to talk about, and then she's obviously free to take tangents and come up with things live.
The form of a cooking show is a lot of just chitter-chatter. I have a tendency to go on lots and lots of tangents, which can be good, of course, but sometimes you want to reel it in a little bit. So I think Matt is doing that for me, and also just in terms of the look of the show, to have another set of eyes on it.
I was late coming from work. I don't really have a regular job, but I took this job putting up solar panels. It's a really intense thing to do all day, and then to, get yourself out of muddy clothes and then go perform.
We're gonna try, I guess I'm gonna stop selling tickets. All right, so I guess we're gonna let everyone in because they started the show. Yeah, so it's 12.
Make way. These women are doing a traditional dance of the country. So as you can see, the highly synchronized, idiosyncratic, at irregular intervals. It's a complicated pattern that many begin learning from birth.
I'll not hear you say that in a non-time.
Physical violence is tolerated in a way that we in our culture would have a hard time believing, so, it's not like it's... Oh! You'll want to see this. This is really a privilege.
You're in the wood to find some wood, to carve some shoes that's understood. It's something good. How will you make shoes without tacks? How will you lay beasts on their backs? Tack, 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 tack. But those are all the verses I know.
Contraband, as in beast pelt perfume your wife covets.
And you're a shoe tack maker. And I don't expect... I don't expect you to totally understand this, but isn't she lovely, isn't she lovely, isn't she lovely?
I wrote a play called Cute Activist. I started writing it 3 years ago. There's puppets in it, and there's songs in it. So those are both these two really cool design elements that are very new that we're figuring out.
Jen, I love how organized you are. I associate organization directly with happiness, not to mention power. Me too. 2, I love your intense eye contact and speech patterns. 3, I love the way that they and you, everything about you really promises success.
Can I toss for a second?
It was a really different time. Obama was president. Activism meant something different. Now we're in this moment where everyone is trying to figure out how to be an activist because we all need to in order to survive.
Gil, I'm an activist.
Hot.
I'm going to an activist meeting tonight.
For what cause?
All.
There's all this very, very, very fun, joyous theatricality in the play, which contrasts with a lot of the emotional content of the play, which is a deep shame, deep fear, despair, apathy, terror.
That's why I can't do dating apps, 'cause they all ask, what's your favorite band? When what's beneath that question is, how much money do you have? How much money do you have?
Can you deliver this to Kristin? Sure.
This particular episode of this show was a little difficult for me, and I think it was bringing up a lot of personal things, about my parents dying, and it's a fine line to be up there and be, honest and wanting to be vulnerable, but at the same time, I didn't want to ever frame it as if I'm complaining.
Oh, hi. Welcome. Tonight I'm going to make for you something very special to celebrate this very special time of year. It's getting a little colder outside. The days are getting shorter. The nights are getting longer. The leaves on the trees are changing colors, turning brown, falling, plunging to their deaths. So what better time to celebrate death?
I'm doing it as an act of generosity, and One of the reasons why I wanted to bring people up is to sort of have that reciprocation of experience.
So what do you think about when you think about something sweet to eat on Day of the Dead? Pan de Muerto. Yes, that sweet bread, that dead bread, that is a brioche-like dough, that it's flavored with orange essence and dotted with anise seeds and decorated with dough that's shaped like the bones of our ancestors.
I use humor in the show not necessarily as a conscious thing. It's something that I require in life. I like kind of getting people confused, like they're like, wait, what did she just say, kind of thing. I don't have any interest in, getting up there and giving lectures to people. That's why I feed people, because I want them to actually engage in a physical way, too. This show is definitely DIY because I am definitely doing everything myself with the help of people who I hire.
Thank you so much for joining me.
People work really hard and they offer some resources, but I pay for a lot of things out of my own pocket. I look at it as an investment, of course, but there's a point at which I'm not going to be able to do that anymore.
For the last 14 years that I've been making theater in New York, I've been working other jobs to support that work. I've done a variety of things. I've been a personal assistant, I've been a waitress. I also sometimes do costume design. I've worked with artists like Rachel Chavkin and Washburn at Classic Stage Company. But for the last 9 years, I'd say I've been a teacher. I teach college essay writing. It's a full-time job, but I have the summers off. And so I'm able to do a lot of work during those times, a lot of writing and a lot of preparation for projects. This is the assignment. It's up on the Google Docs. You have to write a 1-paragraph representation of an idea from an essay that you're interested in working on, and a 1-paragraph representation of a work of art that you think has some sort of interesting connection to that idea. Special note, so the aunt's performance at the Skirball Center, which I think is going to be really cool, says it's sold out online, but they actually held 15 tickets for me. So if you want to go, let me know and I'll put your name on the list. And I think that that's like a pretty special thing to get to see. In the theater in New York, which was about 2000, I think that word downtown was still very much in use because there was a sense that there was like a physical space in downtown Manhattan where a lot of more experimental theater was happening. Now that's less the case. It just doesn't really describe where this kind of theater is happening, which is backyards at art collectives in Bushwick. My partner Craig and I have a space in Williamsburg, which is called the Uncanny Valley. It's our studio space, and we also have performances there, and we rent it out for rehearsals. Coming up, we are working on another version of a show called Mending that we've done several times over the last couple of years. It's actually a show that Craig is directing and has arranged and composed and created the conditions for the music, and I wrote the text, and I probably will be performing in it. It was our first time using modular synthesizers, like really as a part of a play, like a theater performance, and it was really exciting. Craig set up some really awesome stuff. I'm looking forward to getting back into that.
Oh, it's the catfish in the pine
I think the ideal way for me to work is to have a dedicated studio and dedicated time with performers and designers, I would love to work on a project where I really could work on it 40 hours a week for like 3 months or something like that. I would really love to just have that sort of time with collaborators to really invent something all together and have the time to experiment with it and try different things out.
How are you guys feeling today? Unhappy because of the rain? Hey! 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 Pepper? Bella! For 5 years, I worked as a barista at a bakery where New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio came every morning. I would serve him espresso. And I was very kind of amused to think of myself as the Mayors Barista. And oh, this is the play written by the Mayors Barista. The Mayors Barista wrote a play! I did not love being a barista, but it's fine, I survived. And now I need a job. Sometimes I walk dogs. I'm trying to be a humanities tutor, but those are not in high demand. My coolest job is that I sometimes get paid to read scripts for various theaters. Right now I read for Players Horizons. They have an open submission policy, which is really beautiful. Anyone, anywhere can send them a play and they'll read it. I will read it. Working in the theater is so cruel. It's so important to build like a healthy, sustainable life for yourself while you pursue art. And I have not always been successful at taking care of myself. I lived in my friend's living room for 1.5 years, where I paid $500 a month to live in his living room. And I didn't have a door, but I was happy. I was so happy because paying that little rent meant I didn't have to work that many days at the bakery, so I could spend more time playwriting. I think the theater that I make is so in dialogue with my living circumstances, which are precarious. So in an ideal world, it would be confusing to even know what to make theater about because there would be no problems. You know what I mean? The theater I make is like in direct response to the problems I have, like surviving without healthcare and with student debt. So for a long time I was like, my entire life should be organized around being able to devote time to my artistic projects. Having the resources I need to make art is success. There's something very lonely about writing plays. Like, I love being part of a company. To some extent, us forming a company was a response to the very harsh, inhospitable, borderline impossible working conditions for emerging theater artists in New York City. Like, if we pool all our resources, we can produce 1 show a year. When the play started, I was kind of thinking about all the ways I'm apathetic or failed to be more political, and I didn't vote in the local Brooklyn election. I know, it's horrible. But a lot of people didn't. So many people, I didn't.
Your 2 collaborators did.
They're good.
But we all do have hungry ghosts inside of us, yes? So let's all have dessert. I suggest eating it by itself. The downtown theater scene, it's a real thing in New York City. You know, there's like a real community there. Everyone who's doing it mostly has another job. It's not something that we can all do that really can gain any sort of real momentum, because I think people are always like struggling. And it's something that I've really wanted, honestly, to get out of. It's not a model that, as I said, is sustainable, nor do I want to participate in something where I feel like we as artists are not compensated fairly. New York, I think it's very difficult for people who are not fully produced or in companies, you know. It's always going to be a challenge, for sure. When I'm not working on theater, mainly I do pastry to make a living.
Right now I'm in between jobs. I'm waiting to be working at a new restaurant. I also still do audio work. I do editing jobs for people, but I also make cakes for people, do functions. I was asked by some friends of mine to bake them a gender reveal cake, which I had never heard of one before. But it's a cake in which you cut it open and whatever is inside reveals the sex of the baby, pink or blue or red or blue accordingly. I think there are a million great pastry chefs in New York City. I do want to always, of course, hone my craft, but my real goal is to offer something different to people, have a unique experience and evening. I've been working on some smaller shows, invitation only, really curate an evening for people on a smaller scale and also like a more focused scale. I'm striving to find a different audience. I feel like you should have a bigger picture in mind. I think it gets back to the idea of like really engaging with your audience on a intimate level. Although I have dreams of doing like a huge production of this too.